Did you know Christianity did not start in the Middle East? Most people believe Jesus walked the streets of Judea and created the religion we now call Christianity. But historically, that's not true. The Middle East never had a religion centered on Jesus. There were no temples, no official worship, no priesthood, no Bible, no churches. The earliest movements, sometimes called the Way, were small Jewish sects with no Jesus-centered religion, no organized rituals, and no clergy. The name Christian didn't exist there. That label came later from outsiders in Greek-speaking Roman cities like Antioch who were observing these scattered groups. Here's the truth. The figure we call Jesus, was never a real historical person. The story of Jesus already existed in legend and myth before Paul. Paul of Tarsus was the mastermind behind the Jesus story and the religion we now call Christianity. He didn't invent the oral stories themselves. Those had been circulating in various forms. But he copied, adapted, and structured them, gave them a Greek name, and built Christianity as a fully formed religion in Europe. Long before Paul, ancient African spirituality and Egyptian mythology had dying and rising gods, the most famous being Osiris, Ausar, in Kemet, Egypt. Here's how Osiris matches Jesus perfectly. Divine death. Osiris was murdered and dismembered by Set. Jesus was crucified by Roman authorities. Resurrection. Osiris was restored to life by Isis and became lord of the underworld. Jesus rose on the third day. Judge of souls. Osiris judged the dead. Jesus is depicted as the judge of humanity in the New Testament, Matthew 25:31-46. Promise of eternal life. Osiris offers resurrection and eternal life. Jesus promises eternal life to believers, John 3:16, Romans 6:4. Rituals and renewal. Egyptian funerary rites celebrated Osiris's death and rebirth. Christian baptism and communion symbolize death and resurrection. Fertility and life. Osiris represented fertility and rebirth. Jesus' teachings promise spiritual renewal and eternal life. Even the name Jesus carries echoes of Osiris. Paul adapted the story, gave it Greek form, and created rituals, theology, and a fully organized religion. The hidden truth, the story of Jesus, is essentially Osiris reimagined, and millions of people today are unknowingly worshiping the same archetypal figure under a new name. Example: in the Middle East, Jewish sects debated prophets and messianic ideas, but there was no organized worship of Jesus, no temples, no Bible, no resurrection theology centered on him. In Europe, Paul traveled, wrote letters, and built Christianity, turning Isu into a divine figure patterned directly on Osiris. Did you know the religion called Christianity and the story of Jesus as a god is ultimately the worship of Osiris under a new name? The Middle East only provided a cultural backdrop. The theology, rituals, resurrection, and eternal life promise were all constructed by Paul and early European communities. Final thought. At the end of the day, the story of Jesus is not about a historical man walking in the Middle East. It's about ancient truths recycled through time, shaped by Paul and the early European communities. Every ritual, every promise of resurrection, every story of eternal life, it all traces back to Osiris, the lord of the underworld. Millions today think they are worshiping Jesus, but in reality, they are worshiping the same archetypal figure that humans have revered for thousands of years. The name may be different, the culture may have changed, but the message, death, resurrection, judgment, eternal life, is timeless and universal, rooted deep in the spiritual history of Africa and the ancient world. If you really want to understand Christianity, stop looking for it in the Middle East. Look at the myths, the rituals, and the patterns that existed long before Jesus, and you'll see the truth behind the story people call Jesus.